Why hello there my cuties, and welcome back! Two things before I start this video. Number one, I was at the hospital recently, and I'm doing a lot better. It wasn't great, it wasn't fun. I won't go too into detail for that. I might make a separate video on that. And the second thing, GAOMON has yet again sent me a tablet, and it is gorgeous, stunning, and amazing. And I will talk more about that towards the end of the video, so please stick around and listen to that because I'm sure you guys are gonna absolutely love what I have to say about this. It's phenomenal. I really love this tablet. So, I've made 4 different webcomics, and I've done this since I was about 15 years old. So I feel like at this point I know quite a bit about making comics. Maybe. Each iteration I've learned more and more and more from it. I believe that the only true way to learn is to fail. And boy, howdy did I fail many times. So, I think I'm going to do a few videos on this topic just so that I can go more into depth on them and break it down so that hopefully you guys will be able to learn from my experiences and grow from them. So one of the things that I have learned is when you start a comic, really break down the beginning and the end. I don't think that figuring out the middle is as important yet as figuring out the beginning and the end. Especially the ending. Now, the ending, it will probably change dramatically as you continue the story, and that's completely fine, but I believe you need to always figure out an ending first so that you have a goal. The amount of stories that I've read, animes that I've watched, TV series that I've watched that doesn't have an end goal in mind, and you can clearly see and tell that from the writing standpoints and the creators, is so freaking annoying. I think a story that honestly shows this pretty well, and it's a pretty well-known show, I think we could all agree, would be Stranger Things. It very much felt like the first season they had the ending goal in mind, and it was only ever intended to be one season, but then Netflix, I can only assume, was like, hey yo, this is making a ton of money, keep writing it, and they kind of wrote themselves into a corner. So I would highly recommend figuring out the ending of the story first, which sounds really hilarious and dumb because you would think, well, figure out, the beginning and the middle first before the ending. No, figure out the end goal. It doesn't need to be completely conceptualized and every single detail makes sense, because chances are, again, by the time you reach there, it's going to change, but having an end goal will help you from a writing standpoint. That way, when you start figuring out the beginning, you'll literally have the ending to sort of branch off from there, and that way it'll make sense. I've read a lot of stories where there's going to be some big reveal, and it was not really a big reveal because the writers thought of it like way too far in, to the point where they couldn't lead up to this big reveal or anything like that. So especially if you're going to have this, big thing happen, you want to have that knowledge prior so that you can start the build up towards it. In my own story, there's going to be multiple big reveals that I already planned out and that I have already started putting in place at the very beginning of the story, and it will continue on through the story, and I'm hoping it'll make sense to the readers, not the writer, I'm the writer. And so once we reach that point, it will be hopefully a big grand reveal, and the readers will be able to look back on past pages and be like, whoa, oh my gosh, that all makes sense why this was happening. So please do that. I would highly recommend having a notebook or even a Word document of these big ideas. Again, you don't need to write like a long thing of it, just like notes on like when this happens, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. If you happen to be somebody that's really good at keeping it in your brain, that's good, but I would really recommend that you write it down so that future you doesn't forget. And that way, when you're leading up to it more and more, that'll help a lot. The other thing that I would highly recommend to any new comic artist is plan out your characters and do reference sheets. If you're going to sit back and say, "Oh, doing reference sheets is too hard," don't even begin making a comic. Stop. If making reference sheets is too hard, don't make a comic, because that's going to be infinitely more difficult. You gotta do backgrounds, you're going to need to do planning. Don't even start. You need to make reference pages. You need to be able to expand upon these ideas. I've been doing that. There's a lot of things I haven't posted online, between the races that I'm making, a lot of other characters that are made in it. I've only made about 11 reference sheets, and there's going to be a ton more characters I gotta add. And I didn't. If you're doing reference sheets, don't like fully shade them. Don't make them super, super clean line art and stuff. Like, if you work better and quicker, if it's more sketchy, and it's easy to read for you, that'll work perfectly fine. My sketches happen to be far more clean than I think most people's are, so it works for me to be able to do them, because here's some of the reference sheets, and that's me not caring as deeply about the line art, because I don't know, I just always been able to sketch pretty clean. But you're going to need to have reference sheets, especially to attempt to stay on model. When I started making the comic, I also hadn't fully grasped Ryland's face, so you're going to see his face kind of change a bit. That was on me. I didn't just sketch and draw his face over and over again to try and figure out what his face looks like, which can be fine if, as the story progresses, you get more comfortable with it, because that's what happens with a lot of comics or manga. If you've ever looked at the beginning stages of Naruto or Bleach, it's rough. They look weird. But as your story and your style progress, you're going to get more comfortable with drawing these characters. But I would highly recommend that you draw them out multiple times, so that you just generally get used to how they look, what they're, what they are, yada yada yada. But make reference sheets. Yeah, if you have even a minor character, but even if they show up only a few times, give them a reference sheet. It doesn't need to be overly detailed. Don't shade it. Please, for the love of sweet Jesus, don't shade your reference sheets, because you're going to need and want the base colors that you can go to and grab. Some people might say, "Oh, well, I'm not always there. The tones of their skin might change depending on the lighting," but if you have their base colors, then you can always, change the colors depending on what lighting is happening in the comic and yada yada yada. But having the basics of how they look will always help you. And not only that, but like, for fans who are reading it, they might want a reference of the characters, they might want to be able to know more about these characters, and it's really fun and good to do that. So please, I'm begging you, make references, and please plan out more of your comic, figure out the ending, figure out the goals. When I started planning out my comic, the beginning for how it was going to start was completely different, and it changed so drastically because I started asking friends and getting their input, which I highly recommend. If you're incapable of handling criticism, again, don't start a comic. Just don't. You're going to receive criticism on the pages. Heck, I've posted comic pages to my own Patreon, and I've had patrons be like, "I can't read this," or "This looks a little weird to me," and I fixed that, because criticism's good. And I would not recommend you start this huge endeavor if you cannot accept criticism from other people who will be reading it and might have something to say about your work, the art, the writing, anything it may be. If you're just doing a short little comic just for funsies as a hobbyist and just to practice making comics, I completely understand. But again, even then, you're going to get criticism that you're going to need to learn off of for any future works that you might be working on. So please be able to accept criticism on either the writing, the designs, what have you. To make this video not as long, in the next video I will be talking about thumbnailing, planning panels, and things like that, so keep your eyes out for that. But this one was basically the explanation of how to literally begin the process of making a comic. So I hope you guys aren't too upset that I didn't go into depth on literally the entire comic process, like making the comic, but it's more important to start planning the stories, the characters, and things first before you even start drawing the comic out. I know it sounds boring, and the bottom line is that when you start making any comic, it's going to be boring at first, because you need to have this bundle of planning, and when you start planning it out more and more this way, it'll be a lot more beneficial in the long run, because then you will be able to make the story you want, because you've kind of sat on the story some more and really thought about it. So please, do that. Take my word of advice, however you want. But again, I've tried making 4 different comics, and I've learned a lot from making them. Hello! Let's talk about the tablet. Oh my goodness gracious. Alright guys, so this is the PD1161, and it is a stunning tablet. It's smaller than the last one that I've reviewed, but I think it kind of makes it a little better in some ways, because it's far more portable, it fits in your lap very nicely, and it's a lot cheaper because it's smaller. It has a resolution of 1920 by 1080, which is great. It has a battery-free electronic pencil, or pen, I guess, which is really nice, because the tablet that I've been using before this is you have to charge it, which sometimes you just don't remember. It also has tilt sensitivity, which is really nice. The tablet has this really nice kind of texture over it. The other ones that I have reviewed has a glass-like texture, versus this one that has a slight texture to it in case you want something with a bit more grit to it, if you don't enjoy drawing on something that has a glass feel to it, which I think is really, really nice. It has 8 express keys, which is a little less than the current one that I'm using, but I think that is really nice, because a lot of tablets that for the same price don't even have any express keys. Like Wacom's cheapest tablet for a display tablet it doesn't have any keys. It of course has the ability to change the saturation, the color, the brightness, and all those really nice settings on it, as does, like, again, the other one that I've used, which I think is really, really nice, because the Parblo tablet that I had many years ago, that was my first display tablet, which was about the same price as this one, actually a little more expensive, didn't have any buttons on it, so I couldn't adjust it, I couldn't turn off the tablet if I wasn't using it, all that stuff. The tablet doesn't come with a stand, I'm warning you now. They are working on making one, but it doesn't come with a stand, and I owned previously one that was made for an iPad, so if you have any kind of stand that's meant for an iPad or a tablet, it'll fit perfectly in there. But also, I just used it in my lap personally, which is far more comfortable to me. But if you would prefer that you have a stand for it to sit on that you can draw on, you can get some pretty cheap ones, but again, they are working on one. The pen comes with 8,192 levels of pen pressure, which is insanity. That's crazy. How did you fit so much pressure into that? Where's that meme? It's like, slap, this bad boy could hold so much pen pressure. That's basically the meme. It's really, really nice, and I think it is an extremely affordable price for what it is, and I highly, highly recommend it if you're looking for a cheaper display tablet, especially if you are getting into comic making and you want a more upgrades for your tablet. You're not a fan of the old one, I highly recommend that. I think you guys would really, really love this tablet, and we support GAOMON in this house. You guys know me. I love GAOMON. GAOMON sent me many good few tablets at this point, and like, I love it. It's so good. Thank you so much for GAOMON for sending me this tablet. I am absolutely in love with it. I've been using it lately on kind of the regular, and it's what I use to make these pages. So again, I highly recommend it, and I can't thank you enough. Let's get to thanking my Patreons. Hey yo, we got my $10 Patreons. We got Raccoon, Baryonyx Nightmares, Rosemary the Wanderer, Raven, Strong Culies. Thank you so much for being my Patreons. Without you guys, I couldn't afford my rent. And generally, probably would be dead. I don't know. Probably homeless. Who am I to say? We got my $30 Patreon of Lee. And my $60 Patreons of Noah and Dawn. You guys are amazing. You help me so much. I love you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know what that was. Who am I to say? Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are so amazing. Remember to stay safe out there. And hey, drink some water. Bye!